You're listening to Overhead Story Channel. Enjoy.
Christmas was always her favorite. She used to start decorating the second Halloween was over. Garland on the stair rails, cinnamon-scented candles, a fake tree she insisted looked real if you squinted right. It was our thing. Or at least it used to be. This year felt different. I couldn't put my finger on it at first, but there was this distance. Not a blowout fight, not anything dramatic, just little things. That low-grade chill in the air between two people who used to laugh at the same things and now barely remembered why. Still, I kept telling myself it was the stress. Holidays. Work. Life. She'd been busy. I'd been tired. It would pass. That morning, December 24th, I got up early to make coffee. I was half awake, wearing the same hoodie I'd been living in since the first frost. The house was quiet except for the hum of the furnace and the gentle thud of water running upstairs. Ashley had gotten up before me, which wasn't typical. She said she wanted to get ahead of the day. At the time, I didn't question it. I poured her coffee just the way she liked it. 1 sugar, a splash of oat milk, and headed up to let her know. That's when I saw her phone. It was just sitting there on the nightstand, screen facing up, bright against the early light filtering through the blinds. A message had just popped up. Normally, I wouldn't have even looked. I'm not the jealous type. At least I didn't used to be. But something about the timing made me pause. MJ. The name meant nothing to me. Not a friend I recognized. Not a coworker she'd ever mentioned. The preview read, "Can't wait to see you at our spot, Redheart." My breath hitched. I blinked hard, hoping I'd imagined it. But it was still there, glowing in that clean, cheerful font, like it hadn't just rearranged my whole sense of normal. Our spot? The heart emoji felt like a slap. Not because I assumed the worst, at least not right away, but because it was so int asterisk mate. It was the kind of thing she used to text me, back when we were still flirting like high school kids. I stood there longer than I should have, coffee cooling in my hand, trying to make it make sense. Then I heard the water shut off. I stepped back, mind racing. Was it innocent? Was MJ short for a girlfriend of hers? Marie Jackson? Maya something? Could it be a group joke? Some weird holiday code between coworkers? Ashley walked out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel, her hair in that damp, messy bun she always wore when she was in a rush. She smiled, quick, practiced. "You're up early," she said, reaching for the blow dryer. "Yeah. Coffee's downstairs." I tried to sound normal. "Hey, someone named MJ just messaged you." Her hand froze mid-reach. Only for a second. But I saw it. She kept her back to me. "Oh," she said like it was nothing. "It's just work stuff." Work stuff with a heart emoji? She finally turned around, towel still tight around her. Her face was a little too calm. "Seriously? You're reading my messages now?" I didn't read it. Popped up. The screen was on. "So what? I can't have male friends now?" she said, grabbing moisturizer from the drawer a little too hard. "That's not what I'm saying." "Then what are you saying?" I hesitated. I wasn't trying to start a fight, but I couldn't let it slide either. I don't know who that is. You've never mentioned him." She sighed dramatically, turning away again. "God, Kevin. Do you realize how controlling that sounds? It was a private message. You saw one line and you're already jumping to conclusions." "I'm not jumping." "Yes, you are. You always do this." I stood there, stunned. Always do this? That wasn't even true. If anything, I'd been too trusting. But instead of arguing, I nodded slowly. "Okay, you're right. Maybe I'm overthinking." She didn't respond, just kept getting dressed. 15 minutes later, she came downstairs fully dressed, keys in hand, and her favorite perfume trailing behind her like a smoke screen. "I need to run out for some last-minute things," she said, grabbing her purse. "Didn't we finish everything yesterday?" "I forgot a few things," she mumbled, already halfway to the door. "What store are you going to?" She paused, barely looking over her shoulder. "I'll figure it out when I get there." Then she was gone. No kiss, no goodbye, just the sound of tires crunching over frost in the driveway. I stood in the doorway a little too long after she left, still holding the mug I'd made for her, the coffee now cold and untouched. I didn't want to be that guy, the one who obsesses over a single text. But there was something about it I couldn't shake. Not just the message. The way she reacted. The way she flipped the conversation. Like I was the problem for even noticing. It messed with my head all day. We were supposed to be wrapping gifts together, watching that terrible claymation Rudolph like we always did, joking about how her dad still called Santa Saint Nick like he was stuck in 1952. But instead, I spent the afternoon alone, scrolling aimlessly, trying to focus, trying not to check the time every 5 minutes. She didn't respond to my texts either. Not the one asking if she wanted dinner, or the "you okay?" I sent around 6 p.m. It just said delivered. No dots. No reply. She came home at 9:47. I remember the exact time because I'd checked my phone at least 100 times by then. When she walked in, she had one small shopping bag. Just one. She didn't look rushed or tired. In fact, she looked calm. Like nothing was wrong. Like she'd been somewhere peaceful and quiet, not in the chaos of last-minute shoppers. She kissed me on the cheek. Sorry. Stores were a mess. I didn't say anything. Just nodded and turned back to the TV, pretending I was watching. But the truth was I couldn't hear a word of what was playing. Not over the noise in my own head. She took a shower and went to bed early. I stayed up for a while, staring at the blinking Christmas lights we'd hung together 2 weeks earlier. They looked so cheerful. So out of place. I kept thinking about the name. MJ. Was it a coincidence? Could it still be innocent? I stared at the ceiling long after I turned off the lights. I didn't sleep much. And deep down, I think I already knew. I just didn't want to believe it yet. They say when something starts dying, you don't hear a crash. You hear silence. That silence had been creeping into our life for months, but I kept mistaking it for peace. For calm. For the kind of quiet couples earn after years together. Turns out it was just the beginning of the end, whispering in the background while I convinced myself everything was fine. After that message on Christmas Eve, the one from MJ, I started noticing more. Or maybe I had noticed before, but finally stopped making excuses. Ashley had changed. I don't mean in the dramatic movie scene way. No sudden fights or explosive arguments. Just little things. Unsettling things. Like her sudden interest in high-end lingerie. We were barely touching each other anymore, but she had multiple deliveries from boutiques I'd never heard of. Lace sets in black, deep reds, some of them still with the tags. At first, I told myself she was trying to spice things up. Maybe she was waiting for the right moment. Maybe I was just missing the cues. But those right moments never came. And I stopped seeing the tags. They were being worn, just not by me. Then there were the workouts. She'd always cared about staying fit, but this was something else. She started going to the gym at odd hours, early mornings, late nights. She'd come home flushed, smiling in a distant way, earbuds still in as she passed by me in the hallway. Like she was finishing a conversation I wasn't invited to. I once asked if she wanted to go for a hike with me like we used to. Her answer was flat, "That's not really my pace anymore." I smiled. Said okay. Then sat with that sentence in my head for hours. Not her pace anymore. There were networking events too, at least twice a week. She dressed like she was going on a red carpet, tight dresses, full makeup, that same expensive perfume she only used on special nights. When I offered to drop her off or pick her up, she'd laugh. That'd be weird, Kevin. It's all executives. No plus ones. The excuses were just polished enough to sound reasonable. And her phone, that became the fortress. It used to be unlocked all the time. Not because we snooped, just because we didn't need to. She used to leave it on the counter, screen up, no care in the world. Yeah? Always face down. Notifications silenced. Passcode changed. When I asked about it, she shrugged and said, "It's just work security protocols. We're handling sensitive data." Sounded legit. Until I remembered she worked in event planning. I should have said something. Pressed harder. But I didn't. I told myself I was being paranoid. That I'd built a story in my head because of one message and a gut feeling. I hated how much it was affecting me. Turning me into someone I didn't recognize. One night, I tried to reach for her in bed. Just touched her shoulder, like I used to see if she'd turn into me. She flinched, then muttered, "Not tonight. I'm exhausted." I whispered, "Okay," and rolled away. But I didn't sleep after that. I lay there watching her back as she put in her earbuds and disappeared into whatever podcast or playlist or private conversation she'd made a habit of falling asleep to. I missed her. Missed talking to her. But our conversations had boiled down to logistics, groceries, schedules, bills. That's it. She didn't ask about my day anymore. Didn't ask how I was sleeping or if I'd eaten. At dinner, she'd scroll through her phone, sometimes laughing quietly at texts she wouldn't share. I used to be the one who made her laugh like that. One night in January, I cooked her favorite meal, lit candles, tried to recreate a date night from our early days. She was late coming home, said she'd forgotten we had plans, ate 3 bites and said she had a headache. Do you want to talk? I asked gently. You seem somewhere else lately. She paused mid-bite, then looked up and smiled. I'm just overwhelmed, Kev. Work's insane. I'm trying to keep it together. I nodded. You don't talk to me about it much. She gave a dry laugh. Because you always try to fix everything. Sometimes I just want to vent. That one hit. I didn't even argue. Just nodded again. Maybe she was right. Maybe I'd been too focused on solutions and not enough on listening. Maybe I was the reason for the distance. So I backed off. Gave her space. Waited for her to come back to me, like she always did after rough patches. But she didn't. She got further away. And every night I sat in our living room alone, I wondered if I was being a coward. If deep down, I knew what was happening but couldn't bring myself to say it out loud. There was a time when we shared everything. We had a ritual. Friday night drinks, Sunday pancakes, a monthly thrift store challenge. I once bought her the ugliest neon green jacket I could find, and she wore it out in public just to prove she could rock anything. Now that jacket hung in the back of the closet, untouched, just like so many parts of us. I found myself scrolling through old pictures one night, looking at our smiles, our trips, the silly faces we made at each other when no one else was around. I almost forgot how easy we used to be. I don't know when I started counting the days since the message from MJ. Maybe it was subconscious, but I remember the 2-week mark. I remember thinking, if it were innocent, she would have said something more by now. Not defensiveness, not anger, just something. Instead, the message disappeared into the same void our relationship had been falling into. It was around that time I started noticing the calendar events. She'd leave her laptop open sometimes, and I'd see blocks of time labeled on-site prep or client strategy. Every one of them conveniently matched the nights she came home glowing, or didn't come home at all until nearly midnight. One night, when I asked if she wanted to plan something together the next weekend, she winced like I just handed her a problem. I might have an out-of-town site visit. It's not confirmed yet. What day? I don't know. I'll let you know. You don't know when the visit is? It's still being planned. The answers always came like that, just vague enough to make questioning them feel controlling, just specific enough to make me doubt myself. So I stopped asking. Or at least I tried to. The truth is, I didn't want to believe she'd do something like that. I loved her. I still do, in some buried way that made me ignore every red flag waving in my face. I started to feel like a stranger in my own home. Every drawer I opened reminded me of her. Every smell, every shirt she left draped over a chair. But it wasn't comfort, it was evidence. Proof of what we'd been. What we weren't anymore. She was in the house, but she wasn't with me. And I didn't know how to say that out loud without sounding crazy. Or weak. Or both. But that voice inside me, the one that whispered when I couldn't sleep, it kept repeating the same thing. You already know. You're just waiting for confirmation. I didn't want to be that guy. The guy who checks locations, passwords, receipts. That felt like crossing a line. Like giving in to something ugly. But I was running out of other options. One night, she fell asleep on the couch after another event, and I sat in the kitchen staring at her phone sitting 2 feet away from me. I didn't touch it. I just stared at it like it might start talking on its own. And maybe, in a way, it already had. The line between suspicion and proof is thinner than you think. It's a flicker, a snap in your gut, a moment you can't take back. 1 second, you're hoping you're wrong. The next, you're wishing you still had room to wonder. That moment came for me on a cold Tuesday afternoon in January. Ashley had told me she'd be meeting with a contractor downtown. Something about a venue renovation for a spring wedding she was coordinating. She kissed me on the cheek as she left, absent, routine, like she was clocking in and out of the role of wife she barely played anymore. I watched her drive off through the window. I didn't wave. Something about the way she moved that morning, the extra care in her makeup, the subtle smile she wore while scrolling through her phone had flipped a switch in me. I didn't want to keep waiting for answers to come to me. I needed to look. Not out of jealousy. Out of self-preservation. Years ago, I'd installed a tracker on her car. Back then, it was for safety. She was driving late at night for gigs in unfamiliar neighborhoods. We both agreed it was a good idea. Eventually, we forgot it was even there. But I didn't. So that afternoon after she left, I logged into the account from my laptop. My hands were shaking, not from guilt, but from what I already feared I'd see. Her location updated in real time, a small blue dot creeping through the city like a secret. She didn't head toward the venue district. She didn't even go downtown. Instead, she drove 30 minutes out of town, past the commercial zone, up toward the hills where the roads narrowed and the homes got bigger. Richer. Quieter. The tracker pinged her at a private gated estate near the ridge. A house tucked behind tall hedges, stone columns, and a security gate. The kind of place that needed a remote code or an invitation. Not somewhere you accidentally ended up. I stared at the address, pulse pounding. My cursor hovered over the tab for 5 full minutes before I grabbed my keys and went. I didn't even put on a jacket. The drive was silent. I didn't play music. I didn't call anyone. I didn't talk to myself or rehearse what I'd say. I just drove, feeling every bump in the road like a jolt through my chest. When I got close, I didn't pull into the driveway. I parked a block away, near a line of hedges thick enough to hide my car from view. My heart felt like it was trying to outrun me. My hands were damp. Every logical part of me told me to turn around, to leave before I saw something I couldn't unsee. But logic doesn't stand a chance when your life's on fire. I waited. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Just when I started to convince myself I'd made a mistake, the front door of the house opened. And there she was. Ashley. Walking out of that place like she belonged there. Her coat was unzipped despite the chill, and her hair was tucked into a beanie I'd never seen before. She looked casual, relaxed, comfortable in a way she never was with me anymore. And then I saw the hoodie. It hung loose on her frame. Too big. Not hers. It had a logo on the front, some band I knew she didn't listen to. I recognized it, though. I'd seen it once in a photo on her Instagram months ago. She'd tagged it as Throwback Thursday with some laughing emoji. I remember thinking at the time, whose hoodie is that? Now I knew. As she stepped off the front porch, a man followed behind her. Mid-30s, tall, dark hair. Confident. He leaned in close. Said something I couldn't hear. She laughed openly, joyfully. Then he kissed her. Right there in the driveway, like they didn't have a care in the world. Like they did this all the time. Not a quick kiss. Not a mistake. A kiss with history behind it. I felt something rupture inside me. Not a scream. Not rage. Just this quiet, hollow tearing. Like paper ripping down the middle. Like the sound of something you'll never fix. I raised my phone, almost mechanically, and took a photo. Then another. Then a short video. My hands didn't shake. I wasn't crying. I was beyond that. This wasn't the moment I broke. It was the moment I stopped pretending. They parted. He walked back inside. She climbed into her car. I stayed low as she passed me, her eyes focused ahead, oblivious to the fact that her husband was 10 feet away watching the truth drive right past him. I waited 5 more minutes before I moved. Then I sat in the car and stared straight ahead for what felt like forever. I didn't scream. I didn't hit the steering wheel. I just let the silence crawl in. The message on her phone. The workouts. The lingerie. The distance. The lies. It had all led to this. The double life was real. She'd built it quietly, one excuse at a time. And I had let her. Because I wanted to believe in her. Because I was too afraid of what it would mean if I stopped. I didn't go home right away. I drove aimlessly. Past diners, gas stations, side streets lit by flickering neon signs. At one point, I pulled into an empty church parking lot and sat there, staring at the stained glass glowing from inside. A nativity scene set half-toppled in the yard, an angel missing its head. It felt fitting. I thought about calling someone. My brother. My friend Nate. Even my dad. But I didn't want to hear anyone's voice. Didn't want advice. I wasn't ready for condolences. I wasn't ready to say it out loud. I needed the silence. Needed the numbness. Because the minute I said it, it would become real. She cheated. 3 syllables that could burn down a life. By the time I got home, the sun was low, casting shadows across the kitchen floor. Ashley wasn't back yet. I sat on the couch in the dark, phone in hand, watching the video again and again. Not to torture myself, but because I needed to memorize it. To remember that I wasn't crazy. That this was real. When she walked through the door an hour later, grocery bag in hand, she smiled like nothing had happened. "Hey," she said, tossing her keys on the counter. "Sorry I'm late. Ran into traffic." I nodded. She didn't see my face. Didn't see my silence for what it was. She kissed me on the forehead, set the bag down, and walked upstairs to shower. I sat there with the evidence still in my hand. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't wonder anymore. I knew. After you see it, really see it, there's no going back. I couldn't unwatch the kiss. Couldn't unsee her in that hoodie. Couldn't unknow the address. It lived in my mind now, carved like initials into a tree you never wanted planted. I didn't rage. I didn't throw anything. I didn't even ask her where she'd really been. I played it quiet. Because when someone is lying to your face that easily, the smartest thing you can do is stop telling them what you know. I wasn't going to confront her, not yet. Not until I understood just how deep this went. I wasn't looking for revenge. This wasn't about catching her in some gotcha moment. It was about clarity. It was about not letting her twist the truth later. If it came down to her word against mine, I wanted the evidence. So that week, I started building a quiet case. The first step was her laptop. She left it open on the dining table one night while she showered. I wasn't proud of it, but I copied her browsing history, her calendar, and some cloud files to a flash drive. A few spreadsheets. Some notes from her event planning folders. Most of it was mundane until I found a shared calendar marked MJ Sked synced to a second email account I didn't recognize. It was private but not well hidden. I took *TS. Saved them in a folder labeled tax documents. Then came the texts. I didn't have access to her phone, but I remembered that years ago when we bought our phones from the same carrier, I helped her set up automatic cloud backups for peace of mind. I never thought about it after until I logged into the backup using her Apple ID, which she hadn't changed in years. It wasn't everything. No pictures, no videos. But fragments of conversations were there, snippets between her and someone labeled simply M. Half words. Phrases like "same time as last time" and "left your cologne on me, face blowing kiss and still thinking about Saturday." No last name. No contact photo. Didn't need one. I archived everything. Next, I checked the credit card statements. We had a joint account, but she always used her own card for work expenses. A habit that had once seemed responsible suddenly looked like camouflage. I accessed the last 3 months through her banking app, and there it was. Charges at hotels, restaurants, even a boutique jewelry store 2 towns over. None of those ever showed up on receipts she left around. These were private excursions, hidden from view, slipped into the spaces between her stories. On January 17th, she told me she was in a client consult for a corporate luncheon. That same day, there was a $68 receipt for a place called Lumen House, a high-end bistro known for its no-camera policy and dimly lit booths. A couple's spot. Not a meeting place. I took *TS. Exported the statements. Filed them away with everything else. And the more I found, the less I felt. That was the strangest part. I wasn't shattered. I wasn't screaming into the void. I was methodical. Precise. I felt like I was cleaning up someone else's mess, one receipt at a time. Maybe that's what self-preservation looks like when you've been pushed far enough, not revenge, just readiness. After 2 weeks, I had everything I needed. Every calendar discrepancy. Every location ping. Every financial inconsistency. I even installed a simple camera in our living room, nothing dramatic, just a small, motion-activated cam hidden near the bookshelf. Part of me hoped I'd never need it. The rest of me doubted that. I also backed up our home security logs. One night she claimed she'd gotten in at 11:30. The front door had opened at 1:17 a.m. On paper, I was stacking bricks. Building a wall she wouldn't see coming. Then I called a lawyer. She came highly recommended, quiet, tactical, a reputation for winning ugly cases without ever raising her voice. We met in a small office with frosted glass and a bowl of hard candy no one touched. I laid it all out calmly. She didn't flinch. Just listened, nodding, scribbling notes with a fine-point pen. After I finished, she asked, "Do you want to make this public?" "No," I said. "I want to make it permanent." "Understood," she replied. "We'll go for fault-based divorce. Infidelity plus financial concealment. Depending on what's joint and what's separate, we may have leverage over her business assets too. Do you want spousal support?" I paused. "No. I just want out clean." She nodded, sliding a manila envelope across the desk. "Let's start drafting." By the time I got back home, it was dark. Ashley was already in bed, earbuds in, eyes on her phone. She didn't even look up as I walked in. She just mumbled something about early call tomorrow. I stood there in the doorway for a few seconds, watching the curve of her back under the blanket, remembering how that used to be my favorite view in the world. Now, it felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. I went downstairs, poured a glass of water, and opened my laptop. I transferred everything, the emails, the receipts, the photos onto a flash drive and sealed it in an envelope labeled personal. I slipped it into a folder in my desk drawer next to the signed papers the lawyer had prepared. I wasn't planning to blindside her. I wasn't planning to humiliate her. I just wanted to make sure when the time came there would be no lies left for her to stand behind. And the time was coming. Her patterns hadn't changed. She still went to her meetings. Still worked late. Still smiled when she left and went cold when she returned. But now I didn't feel confused. I didn't wonder. I observed. Like a scientist watching a pattern repeat itself until it proved a hypothesis. Like someone watching the final chapter of a story that had long since stopped being fiction. I stopped asking questions. I stopped trying to connect. I let the distance do what it was meant to do. And every time she lied, I simply noted it. Logged it. Not out of bitterness, but to protect myself from the version of the story she'd eventually try to sell. Because there's always a version. Always a twist where the cheater becomes the victim. Where you were cold, or you weren't there for me, or I felt trapped. I'd seen it happen to friends, to coworkers, even in those posts I used to scroll past with a mix of pity and curiosity. I wasn't going to be caught off guard when she flipped the script. I was going to be ready. So I gathered proof. Not for revenge. Not to shame her. But to make sure when the storm finally broke, I wouldn't drown in her story. Because she'd already rewritten our life without telling me. I was just editing in the margins, underlining the facts she thought I'd never find. And soon I'd be turning the page for good. Christmas that was meant to break him. There's a cruel kind of poetry in pretending everything's fine during the holidays. That year, Christmas didn't feel like a celebration, it felt like a performance. Like I was being asked to play a role I hadn't auditioned for, the clueless husband. The smiling guest. The grateful son-in-law. I wore the part well, I think. But underneath it all, I was just a man counting steps on a path he didn't choose. Ashley insisted we go to her parents' country house, same as every year. She made it sound like tradition, but I knew it was a show. A curtain she could pull over the mess we were both tiptoeing through. Maybe she thought if we wrapped the whole thing in red ribbon and twinkle lights, it wouldn't unravel. I didn't argue. Letting her lead the script was part of the plan now. So we packed up the car on the 23rd. She brought gifts, wine, her usual matching pajamas for the family photos. She was upbeat in the passenger seat, humming to Christmas songs like nothing was wrong. I drove in silence, nodding along to her stories, watching the way she smiled into her phone every few minutes. We arrived that evening to warm lights, fake snow sprayed across the windows, and her mother's over-the-top enthusiasm. There were hugs. Peppermint cocoa. Her dad handed me a beer like I was still one of them. Like we were all still living in the version of our marriage she'd sold them. I smiled. I laughed at the right jokes. I answered questions about work. I helped string lights along the back deck. I even took photos of Ashley and her sister in front of the fireplace. The entire time, I wondered if they knew. If they'd seen a glimpse of the truth and turned away from it. Because here's the thing about deception, it rarely stands alone. Someone always helps hold it up. Christmas morning arrived in a haze of sugar and coffee and old family movies playing on a loop. Her family did a big gift exchange every year, coordinated bows, monogrammed stockings, a sequence of who opened when. I sat in my designated spot on the couch next to the fireplace, watching the scene unfold like I wasn't even in it. Then Ashley stood up. She smiled wide, like she was about to announce a pregnancy or a house remodel. "This one's for Kevin," she said, handing me a flat white envelope with a gold seal on the flap. I figured it was time. I stared at it, already knowing. My hand didn't shake when I opened it. I slid the papers out slowly, methodically, like I wasn't about to read the end of my marriage printed in 12-point font. Divorce papers. Signed. Dated. Served in the middle of gift wrap and cinnamon buns. Her mother clapped. Literally clapped. Her sister smiled like this was a surprise party and not the legal termination of a 10-year relationship. Someone laughed. I don't know who. Ashley looked down at me, eyes sparkling. I thought it'd be better this way. Clean. No drama. And that was her choice of words. No drama. Like the only thing she feared now was a disruption to the image she was curating. I set the envelope in my lap. Looked at her. And for the first time in months, I felt no confusion. No heartbreak. Just focus. Thank you, I said calmly. I have something for you too. I reached under the chair and pulled out a box, plain, square, no bow. I handed it to her gently like it was fragile. like it contained something sacred. In a way, it did. She frowned, caught off guard. What's this? Open it. She pulled the lid off. Inside were three things. First, a matching set of divorce documents, mine, already signed and notarized. Second, a stack of printed emails and photos. The kiss in the driveway. Her calendar inconsistencies. Receipts. Flight confirmations. Copies of text backups. She flipped through them in silence, her smile fading 1 inch at a time. And third, a flash drive labeled simply, December. She stared at it, blinking. Her dad leaned over her shoulder. Her sister's jaw tightened. I watched as her mother reached for the wine bottle like it was the only thing that could explain what she was seeing. I know everything, I said, my voice low but steady. I've known for weeks. I didn't say anything because I wanted to be prepared. You were writing a version of this story where I was the problem. I just wanted to make sure I had the receipts. No one spoke. Ashley looked like someone had pulled the floor out from under her. I stood up, buttoned my coat. You can keep the flash drive, I said. It has a folder of security footage, some of the texts you thought were deleted, and a copy of your second email account. You might want to review it before trying to rewrite this in court. Still, silence. Her sister opened her mouth to say something but thought better of it. I walked toward the front door, paused, then turned back to her family. I'm sorry it had to happen like this. But this isn't mine to carry anymore. Ashley finally spoke, barely above a whisper. You were never supposed to find out. I met her eyes. I was never supposed to matter. That's the difference. And with that I left. The cold slapped my face the second I stepped outside. I walked past the string lights and the reindeer statues and the candy cane doormat like I was stepping out of a dream that had turned inside out. I didn't look back. Back at the car, I sat behind the wheel for a while, staring at my hands on the steering wheel. I'd imagined that moment so many times, how I'd feel, what I'd say, whether it would bring any kind of peace. But peace wasn't what I felt. Not yet. What I felt was dignity. I'd been humiliated in silence, gaslit in my own home, made to question instincts I should have trusted. But I hadn't exploded. I hadn't sunk to her level. I'd watched, documented, preserved. And when the time came, I'd stood tall in the middle of her performance and given her the one thing she never expected, truth with proof. Let her spin that. Later that evening, I got a text from her. Just one line. How long have you known? I didn't reply. Because what she really meant was, when did I lose control of the story? She had tried to break me. Quietly. Elegantly. Under a tree filled with ornaments and fake cheer. And all she got was silence.